The member for Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Will the Treasurer advise the House of the importance of microeconomic reform to support economic growth and jobs in our transitioning economy? How is the government's response to the Competition Policy Review helping to improve the quality of service delivery to customers and provide greater choice for consumers?
Just before I call the Treasurer, I remind the House again it's very difficult to hear the question if members are interjecting during the question, and I treat that as highly disorderly. I'm just warning members on my left. I just managed to hear aspects of that question. I'll call the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Gilmore for her questions and her keen interest in areas of competition policy, because she understands how that can transform issues for small business and her electorate. Now, Mr Speaker, we know that with the terms of trade returning to its long-run average, that it's more important than ever to drive productivity to support economic growth, particularly as we move through the transitioning of our economy. This is the most important economic challenge facing the country, and that is to support the positive transition that is occurring in our economy. Now, a key mechanism to drive productivity growth in our economy is, of course, to support competition. Competition policy and supporting greater competition in our economy is the way that you can drive productivity and drive innovation. And that is exactly, Mr Speaker, what this government has been doing as we've initiated the Competition Policy Review and, more importantly, in responding to that Competition Policy Review, Mr Speaker, now moving to implement the recommendations of that Harper Review. In November of last year, this government announced our response to the Harper Review, and we responded to 44 of the 56 recommendations, Mr Speaker, and today we have responded to the 45th of those, Mr Speaker. We've responded to that recommendation, and we will proceed down the path, Mr Speaker, of implementing recommendation 30 of that report, as the Prime Minister mentioned before, and that is to put in place the effects test into section 46, to put in place the lessening competition test into section 46 and removing the take advantage provision. What this does, Mr Speaker, what this does is makes competition policy about the competitive process. It isn't about any one competitor, Mr Speaker, or any one business. It's about the consumer. And what we're focused on is the right outcomes for the consumer, Mr Speaker, because we know when the consumer has greater choice, whether they want to choose their own superannuation fund, for example, in which they want to put their own money. Whatever the choice is, Mr Speaker, we know that when consumers have their choice, that the economy will be better off. And the reforms that we've announced today in response to the Harper Review go to that very point. And that's not the only one, Mr Speaker, that we've adopted out of the Harper Review, some 44 other recommendations. And that includes, in going down the path, as governments have done in previous times, and we remember the Hilmer reforms that increased GDP in this country by 2.5%, Mr Speaker. We are going down a Hilmer Mark II path. And this is something I would hope those opposite would support. They should understand that better competition policy that drives, Mr Speaker, that drives the innovative process and the productivity process that supports jobs and growth is what is necessary for our economy. Now, we are engaging, the Prime Minister, I and other ministers, with the states and territories about how that competitive process, that competition policy process will be realised. But it's one where we've got strong support to go down this path, Mr Speaker, because they understand that this is what is necessary to drive jobs and growth in this transitioning economy. Now, those opposite may choose to join, but I doubt they will.
Has expired.